Here on Freedom Watch, we keep track of the government's incursions against individual rights and the free market. One of the most common arguments in favor of the government, though, is that only it can protect the poor from the ravages of the cold-hearted marketplace. Wait a minute. Hasn't free market capitalism done more to improve the well-being of the average American, including the poor, than any other force in history? Might it even be beneficial to the poorest of the poor? After all, the powerful and the well-connected flourish in almost any system. But markets give an ambitious newcomer, even an impoverished ambitious newcomer, a chance to get ahead. Adam Smith didn't write condemnations of the poor. He wrote condemnations of the special legal privileges that protected monopolies and government commissions of a favored few. Unfortunately, those practices remain all too common today, 234 years after Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, despite talk of government being an equalizing humanitarian force. Joining us now to talk about all of this, who better to talk about all of this than the economist Walter Williams of George Mason University? Professor Williams, it wouldn't be a week at Freedom Watch without you. Welcome back, my dear friend.
Good afternoon, Judge.
Why is it when you walk through poor neighborhoods, whether in Fairfax, Virginia, or here in New York City, you see people more interested in nice clothing than the government more interested in good schools?
Oh, well, that's what I said in that column to which you refer. That is, the free market is pro the common man. And if you go into poor neighborhoods, as you mentioned, you'll see at least some nice clothing, or even some nice cars, even some nice food, but no nice schools. Now you just ask, well, why? Well, cars, clothing, and cars, clothing, and food, they're distributed by the market mechanism,
right,
where there's $1, one vote. Now, in terms of education, that's distributed by the political system. And if you are a minority, you don't want anything distributed by the political mechanism where majority rule is the rule. If you don't have much political clout, you don't want things distributed by the political system. And very interestingly, if you do see in poor neighborhoods, if you do see a nice school, it tends to be a private school,
exactly,
such as Marva Collins Preparatory School or Marcus Garvey School in Los Angeles or Ivy Leaf School in Philadelphia. All of these are private schools that are doing very, very well in poor neighborhoods where up to 95% of the kids read at or above grade level.
In my home state of New Jersey, in Jersey City, New Jersey, one of the poorest cities in the United States of America, there flourishes 3 charter schools. They actually operate at a profit, and yet the teachers' unions and the local politicians condemn them. Why?
Well, they threaten their monopoly. The local politicians and the teachers' unions, they say, well, what's necessary to improve education is what? More money. And they are offended or they're threatened by a school that's doing very, very well with less money or the same amount of money. And so, of course, competition to any monopolist is threatening, and they try to eliminate it.
Well, why should the government provide us with school, with education, any more than it should provide us with shoes or hats to shade us from the sun? Why can't the provision of education be subject to the free market like everything else is supposed to be in this country?
For most of our history, it was. It's only relatively recent when when it became popular to have government provision of education. And, something very interesting along this free market or government argument here is that if you look at areas of our lives where we are pleased, that is where there's no conflict, that is, we don't see anybody arguing about supermarkets or clothing stores or video shops or computer machines. Where do we find people arguing or upset? They're upset about the public school system or the actually government school system. They're upset about the post office, about the motor vehicles department, about the police service, about trash collection. And the reason why the people are pleased with the provision of goods through the market is that the profit motive is operating. That is,
Correct.
the provider, in order to get a profit, he must please his customers. But in public education, you can get pay and you can get raises whether your customers are satisfied or not.
You know, it comes down to the basic principle of Economics 101, which, oh, how I wish politicians could understand this, and I wish they could explain it as nicely as you do. The private free market produces. The government consumes. The private free market has to please its customers and reward its investors. The government has the bottomless pit of the taxpayer dollars, and it doesn't care who it pleases or who it rewards. They are, in effect, the opposite.
That is absolutely right. And there's a certain morality to the market mechanism. That is, in order for me to have a claim on what my fellow man produces, that is, in order for me to have a steak or beer that my fellow man produces, I have to please my fellow man. I have to mow his lawn. I have to teach his children or whatever. But when the government says, well, look, they can say to me, Williams, look, you don't have to be mowing lawns in this hot weather. You can sit on your butt. You don't have to please your fellow man. We will take from him to give it to you. That's the immorality of government versus the morality of the market.
And when the taxpayers learn that the public treasury can become a public trough, they will want the government to provide as many more, quote, freebies as it can. Professor Williams, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You can catch today's show on foxnews.com/freedomwatch and on Sirius 145, XM 168, or online at foxnewstalk.com at 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. From New York, defending freedom until the next time. Stay free, America.